The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week we got to watch our first preseason game that wasn't using binoculars over a tall fence. We also are joined by someone you may have heard of named Brad Stuver. He's Austin FC's goalkeeper. We're going to have a fun little conversation with him a little later on. We also have a few other little bits of Austin FC news we'll cover. My name is Landon Cottam, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Bentley, and I did enjoy our chat with Brad Stuver, and he's pretty dreamy. So I think on Valentine's Day, it is great that we're recording a show that includes Brad Stuver. Because, I don't know, do you have like a... I mean, you're in Ashley. Is Ashley even around? Is she out of town?
She's back now. She was out of town last week.
Oh, she's back now. Okay. So you're choosing to spend your Valentine's Day evening with me doing a podcast on Zoom.
Yeah, that's about right. I thought I'd update folks on my my first soccer game last week.
Oh, that's right.
So
yes.
We lost. It was 2-0, but we had like four or five shots that were like just wide, and so a promising result. I also am very old, and I haven't been able to walk for 2 days after this soccer game. But we had a listener come out, Sam, who interacts with us on Twitter quite a bit. He came out and watched the game, and as I think my teammates, and he was like cheering for us. And so I think my teammates were like very confused by it, but also like very appreciative. Like, why do we have a fan at this amateur soccer game? And then also the opposing team's goalkeeper is a listener to the show. So, Dennis, I appreciate all the heckling you gave me. I made a run into the box one time and tried to like dish it off, and then got tripped and like fell on the ground. And I just hear, "Nice try, podcast."
Oh man, it's kind of ruthless. I love it.
It was
good. I guess y'all weren't ruthless enough. Was that?
That's right. We lacked Ruth, just like Austin FC. They did not lack Ruth in the preseason game against Houston the other day. I guess there was a few games. You want to tell us about the other preseason game that happened before then?
I guess, although that was kind of one of these report from a hill things. I think maybe we got a little bit from Chris Bills out of it because, somebody asked me that today, but the media was allowed to attend the Toronto game, right?
Correct, yeah.
But then fans, so Chris got a better view for sure of that. So yeah, we lost earlier in the week 2-1 to Toronto FC, kind of behind closed doors, and the defense got caught ball watching both the Toronto goals, I think, and the first one was on a penalty.
One
right?
was a penalty. It looks they got behind our back line, and Johan pulled a guy down, and they gave him a penalty. And then I can't remember what the other one was, but again, it was just reading reports on Twitter essentially.
Yeah, we did get to see the Arudi goal, which was the only goal for Austin, and that was in the first half. And I don't know actually if that was from the official account or if that was just like somebody with a camera phone.
I think both. I think we got angles from like a news account and then also from the Austin FC account.
Well, so yeah, and then there was nothing happened in the second half, and so we dropped that one 2-1. And I think it's probably all we need to say about that performance, given that we don't really know very much about it. And I looked all over the place for preseason game recaps, and there are not a lot of detailed ones there. So let's go on to the Saturday, surprisingly live streamed, I think, match versus Houston. Like we didn't know for sure we were going to get it until a day or two before. But I think it was nice to see. The crowd at Austin Beer Works really seemed to enjoy it. I saw lots of video of that. You did not make it out to that, is that right?
I did, but after the game. So I finished my game and then ran home and watched the game at home. And then we got in the car and drove up to Austin Beer Works afterwards and hung out with folks after the game was over.
Well, let's talk about the Houston performance on Saturday then. Because to start all this, we've said we're not going to overreact to preseason performances, and now we're about to completely overreact to preseason performance, I think.
Yeah, so going into this little recap we're going to do, I think we're going to focus more on player performances as opposed to the game itself, just because I like Jeremiah said, like it's preseason. Houston didn't look entirely up for it for whatever reason. But I think there's some player performances and maybe some positioning things and some tactical things that we can kind of take something away from. So we're going to spend most of this recap on that part of it. So it ended 4-0 in favor of Austin. The first 2 goals were both Cecilio Dominguez. The very first one was a just a miss. Like Houston was trying to play out of the back and Austin was pressing really high. Darwin Quintero plays a terrible ball across the face of goal. It lands at Cecilio's feet in the box and he buries it into an open net. It was not an easy finish. It was like the way the ball was moving and kind of bouncing. It was a difficult one to finish, but Cecilio absolutely buried it. The second one was, I think, a 10 or 12 pass sequence out of the back from Austin. So started up the left side, back around to Stuver, up the right side, some really like clever one-touch passing going on. It ends up with Cecilio Dominguez isolated on the left wing. He drives into the box, does a couple of little dance moves, and puts it on a postage stamp in the far top corner. It was amazing. Yeah,
his footwork was incredible there. Like I had to watch it 3 times to figure out where the ball came out and how it made it through the defender. It's just all the best that you could expect that we would hope to see from Cecilio this year.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll get into more of that here in a second, but it definitely was. Third goal was Alex Ring. It was Danny made like kind of a long meandering run to the edge of the box, lays it off to Driussi. Driussi kind of does a kind of deceptive little spin and lays it off to Ring with the outside of his foot. Ring tees it up and again kind of squeezes it through the eye of a needle there. I'm not sure how it got through, but squeezes it between 2 defenders with his left foot, and it goes to the back post into the bottom corner. And then the last one was, what was the last one?
It was Maxi Rudy got the last goal too.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, Maxi Rudy, it was Kolmanich ended up kind of on the inside, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe Cecilio played him through, and Kolmanich ends up on the ball kind of on the outside of the box. He plays kind of a hopeful cross in, like lunges to play this hopeful cross in on the ground, and it's going right towards Steve Clark, the keeper. Daniel Steres, the center back, is kind of running at it, and they both kind of hesitate, and Arruti just jumps in between them and taps it into the goal. And so I want to talk about that one in a second as well. But yeah, ended 4-0. Again, not taking a ton away from it, but let's dive into some more of the specifics that I think we can take some things away from it. So formation-wise, this was not super dissimilar to a lot of what we saw last season. So in attack, it was a 4-3-3 with Danny Pereira as the lone 6, which I was maybe a little bit surprised. The game that we saw over the fence, the first preseason game that I watched over the fence, it looked like it was more of a 4-2-3-1. But this one was more of like a straight up 4-3-3 with Danny as the 6 and Ring and Driussi up ahead of him as those dual 10s. And then defensively, it was that 4-2-2 shape that we saw, I think, most games last year, with Driussi would push up alongside the striker, and then the wings would fall back into a line of 4 with the central midfielders. So the starting 11 was Brad Stuver in goal, Nick Lima at right back, Julio Cascante, and a surprise starter, Kipp Keller, as the center backs. Left back was John Kolmanich. Then Danny Pereira at the 6, Ring and Driussi at the dual 10s, Diego Fagundes right wing, Maxi Arruti at striker, Cecilio on the left wing. So were you surprised to see Kipp Keller starting this game?
I think it's started all 3 games in the preseason now. So I don't.
Yeah,
I guess the first one doesn't count. The first one doesn't count.
It was like mixed squad. So like if you're saying that was the starters, then like you're saying Driussi isn't a starter for this team, and so I don't think that one really counts.
So let's throw that one out. Let's just say for the team to start against Toronto and Houston, I think sends a message. So yeah, a little bit. I am, but he lived up to it, right?
Yeah, he was great. I think he was really aggressive, showed his athleticism. He's like a little bit like goofy looking sometimes. Like it seemed like his arms were like flailing around as he was doing certain things, but it was always effective. Like he always got the job done. So made some recovery runs that nobody else at center back anyway on the team could have or would have been able to make. So that was really encouraging. On the ball, he was really smooth and calm and played some really nice long balls and just like seemed really confident playing the ball forward out of the back. I think Chris Bills in an article before this game, I think it was after the Toronto game, he had seen that from close up. He made a prediction in an article that Kipp Keller is going to start the first game, the first MLS game at Q2. After watching this game, I think he's right. I think Kipp Keller, like we saw Cascante on the field with him, and then we saw Kleeman and Romagna later on in the game. I thought Kipp Keller was the best center back on the field for Austin that night.
So who do you think is if we buy that, who's his partner going to be? It was Cascante this game. Do you see Cascante again, or do you see Romagna?
I think it would probably be Cascante. Wolf seems to really trust him. And we saw Cascante get in a few of those like twisted leg moments where he's running backwards and a guy crosses him up and he just isn't agile enough to like make that turn and keep up. We saw that a few times, but we had transition speed in there enough, and we had Keller there to bail him out a couple of times as well, that it seemed to be okay. So not necessarily ideal, but it's temporary. We're pretty positive that spot belongs to Ruben Gabrielsen as soon as he gets here, as soon as he's here and ready to play. So I think we can handle it for the first game. As far as the rest of the team, do you think there's anybody else that is not a starter for that first game?
I think the Pereira versus Valencia thing is the next most interesting question. I think they brought Valencia in to be the starter, but Pereira does not seem to be in the mood to give that spot up super easily, and he looked very interesting.
Danny looked really good. He was like, I've made this comparison several times on the show, but Darlington Nagbe, that's what he looks like carrying the ball, and like keeps possession really well, progresses the ball really well, just looks super smooth, super confident. You were never going to take the ball off of him. Made like a couple of the like really dangerous plays, or even on some of the goals, like he was the one who started it off and kind of opened up the play to make it happen. So he looked really good there. He's still not, he's not the defensive player that I would feel comfortable with in that position. And so that's kind of my concern with Danny Pereira is like, he doesn't have that defensive bite enough to make me feel comfortable as a lone six like he was playing. But also, I don't know that he's as good like in that attacking third, making those like tight quarters the final ball to get in on goal. I don't know that he's great at that either. I think offensively, he is better coming from deep. But to be there, you almost need to be a better defensive player than he is. I think he's still young. He can develop some of these things and maybe find a home, but I'm just like a little bit worried about one of those two things whenever he's on the field. But he looked fantastic on Saturday night.
Well, let's talk about what we saw out of Valencia too, because I think he looked for his, I guess, almost a half, just short of a half. I mean, I think he looked pretty solid too.
Just short of a half. He came in at halftime for Danny Pereira. Danny did take a couple of knocks and looked like, I don't think that's why they took him out. I would imagine that was like a programmed change that we wanted to get Valencia 45 minutes. He then ended up being sent off. He wasn't quite sent off. It wasn't a red
right.
card, but in the 89th minute for denial of a goal scoring opportunity, they got on a fast break and he kind of disrupted it. And the ref came up to him and said, like, you have to leave the field, but then motioned over the sideline, like, you can make a sub. But I don't think we had any more subs left at that point in time for reasons we'll get into in a second. But so we ended up playing the last couple of minutes down a man, but that was pretty interesting. But yeah, while he was on the field, really clean and decisive on the ball, was a more aggressive player in midfield than most of our other players are. He was a little bit adventurous with his positioning at times. And there was a throw in one time where he floated up a little too high and Ring let him have it. He was like yelling at him and telling him like, no, you stay back here. And a lot of the like in our defensive shape, a lot of times Ring was behind him. And when Pereira was on the field, that was not the case. And so I think that's going to be something he's going to have to get a bit more accustomed to, and just kind of learning the shape and where he's supposed to be in these moments. But as far as just like the just kind of his nature as a player, I really liked a lot of what I saw. He would receive the ball, super clean touch, turn, play a super clean pass. So nothing too fancy, but really good at just kind of like swinging the ball around efficiently and kind of switching the field really efficiently. So I think we'll still need to see him settle into the role, but I liked what I saw in those 40 some odd minutes.
And when you say that the things that he hasn't excelled at are things that he can work on just with time and experience in the system.
That's what it seemed like to me.
It seems like they're coachable. And then I think too, at least from what he said and what he said in the interview with Chris Bills and stuff, I mean, it seems like he's bought into the role that we all expect to see him in and want him to play. So like, unlike maybe a Pochettino situation, I don't think he's going to like buck the system and fight against being there. He's just got to like learn where he's supposed to be and like where his role in the system is.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. One other thing we did see from him was a shot that was not very good. And this is whenever we did our little scouting report on him a few weeks ago, this is one thing I forgot to mention, but on Y Scout, I sorted by shots, just like shots taken. And I think like probably 80% of them were from 30 plus yards out and were as off target as that one we saw the other night. So I'm not going to hold my breath for him to score a bunch of goals. And he wasn't forcing him. It was a lot of times where like the ball would fall to him and he'd just take a crack because it was there. But I would imagine they're not going to be asking him to look for that shot very often, but hopefully he can get one in eventually. Who else do we want to talk about here? Nick Lima, defensive reliability. I thought he was better than average for himself going forward in his passing.
I know how much you love seeing Nick Lima going forward, so that's pretty good praise.
In that second goal from Cecilio, he had a really nice one-touch pass into Ring's path, like kind of around a defender, and it was key to kind of getting Cecilio into that space on his own. So that was really nice from him. Fagundes was a little bit quiet. We talked about him. So in that 4-3-3 shape, the wings were staying really wide. Last year in that position, we would see Diego move inside a lot. And on Saturday night, Diego and Cecilio were staying super wide. And I think that suits Cecilio's game. We saw with that second goal, like move the ball, like use the ball to disorganize the opponent, find Cecilio on a 1v1 on that wing. And that's where he thrives. That's where he's going to do a lot of damage. Diego is like maybe not so much that player. I think he can be, but it's just not what he's used to doing. And so I think if we play that way, he's going to have to kind of find his space in that role because I don't know that that's his natural position. In the system we were playing on Saturday, I almost think Diego would be better as one of those dual tins. And someone like Ethan Finley might be a bit better suited to that right wing role. It sounds like, it feels like blasphemy to say that like Diego Fagundes might not have a clear place on the pitch. But yeah, he didn't look at home in that wide winger role.
Well, let's hope this is just a oddity of preseason in that match, and we'll see how we go forward.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we have to talk about Cecilio, I think, because this is the Cecilio that we all hope for and dream for, and that we're going to have to see all year for the team to have a lot better performance overall than we had last season.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is the Cecilio that I want to see this year. And he's not going to score 2 goals every game. I think he'll still go through kind of rough patches, but just kind of instead of being the ringleader, being a role player. And I think he can do some really good stuff for this team in that position. And that's what he did on Saturday in Houston. He wasn't running the show, but we don't need him to play that role and do it well. And I think I'm hoping that this game is a good sign of things to come for him. Maxi Ruti real quick. Again, just like seeing someone that he was doing stuff we've never seen in an Austin FC jersey. riding that like the back shoulder of a center back and making these line stretching runs. Rarely did anybody play a ball to him, which I think is something that needs to change because nobody's going to honor that run if nobody ever plays it. And so, but it was, I think, an interesting thing to see just because we've not had a striker that does that kind of thing. Even when GT came in, he made some runs, but GT likes to drop in a little bit more. He's really good at that hold up play, but yeah, I think finding some patterns to work with Urruti with our midfielders, I think that'll be an interesting thing to watch. In the 69th minute, we had a complete line change. So Stuver stayed in and Valencia stayed in from the halftime substitution. The other 9 players subbed in and subbed out. So we ended up with a lineup of Stuver, Gallagher at right back, Romagna, Kleeman, Jimenez at left back, Valencia at the 6, Wolf and Felipe in front of him, and then Stroud on the right wing, GT up top, Redes on the left wing. We'll only talk about a couple of these. Gallagher, I thought he looked solid at right back. Does he look like he's put on weight to you?
He maybe a little bit. I don't know.
He looks like more muscular to me. Maybe that's not true, but he seems like thicker to me than he did last season.
That'd be good because I mean he's obviously a defender now. He's a fullback without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that's the case. But yeah, limited minutes, but I thought he looked solid. Owen Wolf, I thought Owen Wolf looked pretty good.
I did too. He looked really good on the ball, and he didn't look like he was a kid among a bunch of adults.
Yeah, and
he looked like he belonged.
A little bit timid at times, but he's 17. He's like barely 17. He's like 17 in like a month or something. And so the fact that he's out there looking that confident and that clean and like in possession and being able to maintain possession like that, there's a few times where you could see like he received the ball and just kind of panicked and was like, okay, I got to get this to somebody else now. But like physically, I think he looks like he's up for the game as well. Like made some pretty aggressive tackles, chased some guys down. So I think he's going to be ready to be like a real MLS player in the not so distant future. I don't know that he'll get a ton of minutes this year, but I'm guessing by 2023, he's going to be a regular appearer in this league. One other one to mention is Rodney Redes. What did you think about Rodney Redes' performance?
I feel like Rodney Redes looked like a waste again. Maybe I think I may just have like, I don't know what the opposite of rose-colored glasses are for a player, but I can't find the good in Rodney Redes' play, and I have a feeling you disagree with the way you looked at me when I shared this opinion. So
no, I think he looked better than he did in a lot of games last year. I thought his positioning and movement were pretty good, and he like looked more confident. He still didn't do a ton of great stuff on the ball. He got a couple of shots off. There was one shot that like wasn't that far off, kind of like a high curler to that top corner, and it was a little off, but he looks like he's playing more confidently. So I think that's a positive sign. So he still needs to do more when he gets on the ball. But it's an improvement from what we were seeing late last year. So let's take that as encouragement.
Take that. Yeah, and you see in those like club videos, I mean, he seems to be having fun and, you know, being a good member of the team and like a good teammate and stuff. So I mean, to your point on sort of confidence, he does seem to be enjoying himself. So maybe it'll pay off. But I don't have a lot of hope at this point. Yeah.
I think confidence is kind of the main thing we can take away from this game. Like it's preseason. It doesn't matter. Houston looked pretty bad. Their midfield looked specifically bad. But I think if nothing else, we got to see some of these guys get a run out. I think confidence is a thing that this team was lacking for large stretches of last season. So hopefully, if nothing else, they'll just feel better about themselves going into the Atlas game on Wednesday and then the season opener the next weekend.
Yeah, the Houston midfield. So I did Glenn Davis's show earlier today, and like the first, I don't think any of this is in the recording, but like the first 10 minutes of our chat was about how bad the Houston midfield was and how they were going to finish last in the league if they couldn't do anything about it. So it's a pretty good sign to not overdo it.
Also on the Houston front, their big Paraguayan signing, Sebastian Ferreira, Kipp Keller had him in his pocket for most of the night.
Yeah, Kipp Keller dominated him.
They
I
would
mean, it
play
was
balls
amazing.
into his feet, and Kipp would either be right on his back to give him a bump, or would get around and actually like deflect the pass or intercept the pass. So again, not a great midfield, and this guy's new to the league. This is maybe his first MLS competition. I'm not sure if Houston's played another MLS team, but I'm not going to judge him too much yet. But yeah, Kipp did really good against him. All right, let's move on to the next preseason match, which is against Mexico, Liga MX Atlas. I believe Atlas is like second in the league, and we're the champions of the last league. What can you tell us about this game, Jeremiah?
Well, so they're in season. I think that's one thing to point out. So I would expect we will not see their best 11 because of that, because they're probably going to want to save them for games that matter. Right now, they are 5 games into the Clausura, and they've won 3, draw 2. Excellent defensive club. Don't score a ton of goals. Probably going to keep that up this year. They have conceded 3 goals in their 5 games. So I mean, it's not a huge name in terms of players that people know, or it's not a huge club. But I mean, they're good, and they'll be a strong side. And the game's when is it? It is at
it's Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Yeah,
8 o'clock on Wednesday. So I don't know. I have no idea what to expect out of Austin either. I think they're probably still working on stuff and trying to finalize the best 11. So I feel like we'll see a pretty strong lineup on the Austin side of things.
Yeah, I think that's right. Last year when we played that friendly against Tigres, it was mid-season for us as well, and midweek during like a kind of a congested week. And we are concerned about having enough players to play. Like,
right.
Owen Wolf got some minutes there. Freddie Kleeman got minutes. Mackenzie Gaines got minutes in that game. And Owen Wolf and Mackenzie Gaines were not on the team yet. They did not have contracts yet. This year's a little bit different. I think we will see a pretty strong lineup. We'll have a week and a half before the home opener at that point, and most of the starters only went 60 minutes or 68 minutes or whatever the other night. So I would guess we'll see as close to a starting lineup as we can get, maybe the exact same lineup as we saw against Houston.
Yeah, do you think there's any? I mean, I would like to see Valencia get a start. I'd like to see that change, just to see what he looks like with the rest of the first team. But maybe he won't get it this week.
I think they would probably still want to limit his minutes, but I think we'll probably see a lot of subs. Probably not an entire line change, but more than 3 or 5 subs in this game. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Valencia start and then him maybe come out at 45 minutes or at 60 minutes or whatever it is, and just kind of build up his fitness until he's ready to go 90.
Yep. And if you're not at the game, you can watch it on austinfc.com or the Austin FC app. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to check it out again.
So talking about our center backs, one of them is still missing, which is Ruben Gabrielsen. Where is he, Jeremiah?
He is still in Norway, which is not really promising for him being. I think we could we can let's just call him out for 12 days from now, whatever. I would highly doubt that we're going to see him on the 26th. But he's still in Norway, and I guess this was in a Chris Bill's article. He is practicing with the team, not just in individual training, but also they did not reveal what that team was. So I don't know if it's just a beer league team or what, but he is playing with other people.
Yeah, that's curious to me that, like, there's probably a reason I'm not thinking of, but, like, why would that need to be a secret? Can you think of any reasons?
I have no good reason why it's a secret. I mean, he's ours. It's not like he's going to suddenly show up playing for that club or whatever. So that was an odd point, but one that Chris pointed out.
Yeah. So, yeah, we said on last week's show that he would probably need to get here that week to be able to be ready for the first game. He is still not here. No news on when he's going to be here. So I think Keller may have earned a starting spot regardless with his performance the other night. But let's say Gabrielsen was going to be here. Do you think Keller would still be that in that spot next to him, or do you think it would be one of the other two?
I think it would be Keller. No, I guess I haven't seen the way Keller played. I'm not as desperate to like have Gabrielsen and like have started the first game. So I think once we got to where we are now, I think it's probably okay that he's not in right now. But I don't know, who do you think you'll see? Keller and you think Cascante, right?
I think
Josh
it's going to be
sees something in
Cascante. Yeah, he plays the ball like he is much better on the ball than Romagna is. And so if we can like play in defensive transition with as much as intensity as we did on Houston, and then have the speed of Keller next to him, like that helps mitigate some of the risks of having Julio Cascante on the field. But again, it's not like a long term. It would make me nervous to have him as a starter long term again this season.
I think a Gabrielsen point we didn't mention is that, so we've got this group of people that we know that are all into meeting players at the hotel or the airport or whatever. And they seem to think that we would see him last weekend or by last weekend, and we haven't, which also worries me a little bit as far as his timely appearance.
Yeah. One other point I meant to make on Keller is that although we're raving about him now, I don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves because he is a young player. He's going to have some like rough patches. More than likely, he's going to make some mistakes. He's going to let in some goals. That's just what it is. Like the best 21-year-olds in the world are going to do that. And so I think we should be careful not to pump him up too much and get too high on him because he is going to make some mistakes this year. But what we've seen so far makes me excited for what his ceiling is eventually going to be. Not necessarily even this year, but a year, 2 years from now, I think he's going to be something pretty special.
Yeah, and he seems like he'll be able to hold up to the physical demands just because of like his size and strength, maybe in a different way from how, Danny got off to like a super hot start last year. And then just as the season went on and sort of the grind of playing an MLS schedule as opposed to a college schedule, he seemed to wear down. No doubt he was less effective at the end of the year than he was the start of the year. I think you can expect that from any college player transitioning to the pro game, but hopefully Keller's size will help him not respond in quite that way.
Yeah. So Chris Bills broke some news earlier today saying that we had, was it 6 or 7 trialists in camp? There's only one remaining. So apparently Charlie Asensio is now the only trialist left in camp. Chris Bills reported that Tony Rocha looked pretty good. He played in the Toronto FC game and he looked pretty good there, but he's 28 years old, I believe. That would mean he would have to slot into one of our senior roster spots, which I believe we only have one left of now, right?
Right. We have, I think it was Gallagher we thought might be on the supplemental, but he's actually on the senior, which we found out when they added Felipe, right? Yeah. And so that leaves us one spot on the senior roster.
And so the fact that Charlie Asensio is the only one left, it makes me think a couple of possibilities that and Wolf told Bills that they're expecting Asensio to be with them for the next few weeks. They don't have to sign him yet. He could still be a trialist for the next few weeks until roster compliance date, whenever that is. And so I imagine they're still assessing him. If he looks good enough, they'll sign him and he'll slot into one of those supplemental spots. If they don't think he's good enough, they'll either try to fill the gap with that supplemental spot with another left back or use that senior spot on a left back. What I'm hoping is I hope Charlie Asensio is good enough to get signed and fill in that supplemental spot. And then we have that senior spot available to use in the summer once we've kind of seen this new group and kind of see where needs are. And hopefully we have a big bag of allocation money left over from all the acquisitions this offseason that we can spend on another real player for that last senior spot.
Yeah, let's go into another random bit of Austin. I guess it's not random, but it was media news today, off-field news. Isn't that probably how we should put it? So we got an announcement from the club today. There's going to be doing a lot more content online and on social. And then they also, this is probably the most exciting thing, is they've added a 30-minute pre-match show for all regionally televised home and away broadcasts, which will be 26 of the 34 matches. There will be a half-hour pre-match program that's going to appear on KXAN in addition to the Austin FC website and app with a 4-person desk led by Adrian Healy. And I just feel like the more Adrian Healy we can get in their lives, the better. So I'm excited about that piece of news. So for the home matches, they'll set up in the corner. What is that? It's got a name.
Oh,
the southwest corner.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is, but
whatever it's called.
For it.
Yeah, whatever that thing is, and then it will be on field level for road matches. I think that'll be a really cool addition. One of the things that people had questions about last year when KXAN got announced as the broadcast partners, how committed were they actually committed to soccer, because they didn't show as much Austin FC coverage as some of the other stations like KView, but they had the advantage of having a channel everything could be broadcast on. And I think folks were disappointed we didn't get more pre-match content last year. So the fact that they've seen the value in it and announced it, I think is a really good thing all the way around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen like how hungry for this kind of content this fan base is. And so I think they'll see very quickly that a lot of people are going to be tuning into this stuff. So, and I'm excited to see it as well. So like the more coverage we can get about the team, I think the better.
Yep. And then we got some news about Twitch too. And we'll try to keep this all straight because there was several different pieces of content information. So on the club's Twitch channel, they're going to live stream all the midweek press conferences, which is something that we've had people ask for. And I think actually at some point last year, I started like posting the press conferences on my personal YouTube channel, along with like pictures of my kids when they were babies and stuff like that. So like I will lose those views, which is probably okay, but they'll be able to get it. And then also the post-match press conferences, home and away, are going to be live streamed via the Austin FC app. And I know that was something that a lot of the people that we knew that were really into it wanted to see last year too, was to be able to watch the press conferences. So those will be nice additions. They'll all be available either on the app or on the Twitch channel for Austin FC.
They're also going to do another show on the Twitch channel featuring NFL offensive lineman Marshall Newhouse, Food Network host Ali Khan, and local reporter Brittany Flowers, fan favorite Brittany Flowers. But it says it's going to be 60, 90-minute conversations centering around Austin culture and soccer. So like a lot of new like soccer-focused content brought to you by the club, which I'm excited to see all this. It seems like like different avenues of bringing content as well.
Yeah, it's cool. And credit to, because this was in there somewhere, I took it out, but I'm pretty sure a lot of this is Ryan Madden's baby. So good job, Ryan. You've seen what the crazy people who are into all this stuff need and have responded to it.
All right. Well, what else do we need to cover before we get into that Brad Stewart interview?
Well, we have a story about the Austin FC Academy that came out on Twitter today from a source that I don't know, seems to know what they're talking about, but that we don't know a whole lot about before. You want to get into that a little bit? Yeah.
So this account is called USMNT Prospects, and they're at Prospects USMNT, but they're posting MLS Academy rankings. So ranking the academies in order, and then also doing a top 10 prospects within that academy. And so like they seem to have done quite a bit of homework in order to even know any of this stuff, or even like plausibly pretend like they know any of this stuff. But also I'm not sure how they're getting any of this information, because you can't really watch most of these games unless you're at the games. And so I'm a little bit confused as to like how they're getting this information, but they seem to know quite a bit. So, but they placed Austin FC number 13 on their MLS Academy ranking. I think he goes on in a thread to say like it's impressive that they've done that in just the 2.5 years that it's existed, to have the results that they've done and be producing the prospects they've done. He also goes on to post a list of top 10 Austin FC Academy prospects, which this is where it got me a little bit suspicious, is he didn't put Micah Burton on the list at all in the top. And this is a mixed group, so it's between all three of the top age groups. But Micah Burton is the one getting call-ups to the U17 national team. You'd think he'd be on this top 10. And I've mostly watched the U17s, and he has guys that I personally wouldn't rank above. There's only really maybe one or two that I would even put on the same level as Micah. Only one of them are on this list, and Micah's not on the list at all.
So it's a questionable, maybe individual ranking. And to your point, we don't know where he's getting it from, but the opening quote, which was Austin's early results have the makings have all the makings of an eventual elite level academy wanted me to believe that this guy's a genius and knows everything about academy soccer. I guess we'll find out in a few years if that was accurate or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that the academy's turning heads and getting attention of people who are paying attention. So, if nothing else, I think that's pretty cool. All right, I think we should move on to our interview with Bradley Stuver. So, I know you've all probably seen a few interviews with Brad Stuver and other players recently. They've been kind of on the media circuit here lately. So we went into this interview with kind of the intention of asking some questions that you probably haven't heard many other people ask him, or they're not like super off the wall ones, but I'm hoping that you're going to get some information out of this interview that you probably haven't heard out of the other ones. Do you think we accomplished that, Jeremiah?
I think we did. I mean, I think I stumped him with the question about the domain. He seemed to be blowing away the people. So if nothing, we've got that. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was good. It was good to hear. And we did have him on last year. And he's in a very different situation. And it was good to hear the difference for himself and for the team, just in terms of bonding and time together and performance, and like how this season is a very different offseason than 2021 was. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, we hope you guys enjoy this interview with Brad Stuver. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with that. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FVF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FVF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education.
You can go to fvf.law to find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's fvf.law. All right, we are thrilled today to be joined by Austin FC goalkeeper Brad Stuver. Brad, thanks so much for doing this, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me back on.
I know last year was kind of a whirlwind with pandemic and big road stretch, and then a crazy schedule once we did get back home. Then you had a kind of a short off season. Did you actually get to do anything fun this off season or like relaxing?
Yeah, I mean, me and my wife, we actually stayed here in Austin for the entirety of the off season. We went to Fredericksburg for
nice.
Our anniversary. Did a little weekend trip out there, saw some wineries and saw like the Christmas lights and stuff. We got to experience Ballet Austin and the Nutcracker. But other than that, we just kind of hung out at home, and we bought a house in South Austin. So we've kind of been working on making that as homey as possible.
Nice. I'm a South Austin guy. Let me know if you need any tips.
We love it down here. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I was going to bring up the Nutcracker thing. I forgot about that because I was telling Landon like, oh, Brad's going to play Mother Ginger, the Nutcracker, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about because I've never seen Nutcracker. So, were you familiar with what that role was when they asked you, and like what was that experience like?
No, so we saw the Nutcracker when we lived in Cleveland, but it did not have the Mother Ginger character. So I found out that only some productions use that character and do that. But no, so Andy Lockney and Caitlin Morrow brought that to me and said, hey, Ballet Austin want to do this. Are you open to it? I had no idea. They sent me all these links and stuff. And they sent me, I think it was like Lance Armstrong and Vince Young and Mayor Adler, and like all these guys that have done it. They're like, oh yeah, this is what it's going to look like. I was like, okay, cool. It was fun. It was a good time. Super nervous though.
Well, I heard you put on a good performance. Like you can only do that over the top, right? Like you can't be understated.
No, the only way to do that is to just go all out and pull out all the stops for it.
That's awesome. So you did mention we got to talk to you last year. It was, I think, maybe late February, early March, and at that point in time, you were part of a goalkeeper competition. I don't think that's the case this year. So does that change your approach to the offseason when you're kind of the guy versus when you're trying to be the guy?
No, I think everything kind of stays the same. I think we have a really good depth chart this year. I think we have a lot of guys in a lot of different positions battling and competing. I think the competition aspect for me stays the same because no matter what position you're in, no matter if you were a starter last year or years before at other clubs, you still have to go out. You have to prove that you deserve to be out there. And obviously we all hold ourselves to a high standard and we want to win games. And I think going into this year, we're more focused than ever to win games and have a good season.
I think a lot of people kind of expected you to be the second keeper going into last season, not us. I mean, Jeremiah and I knew you were always going to be the starter, but we'll give you this opportunity to put anybody on blast that doubted you if you want to.
No, it's okay. I mean, Tarbell had played 48 games total. I had played a total of 9 MLS games. I had backed up for 9 years. He had been a starter before. So, I mean, it was like, it's totally understandable. But
we had Preston Burpo, the goalkeeper coach, on the show last year as well. And then I think in interviews with Josh Wolf and Claudio Reyna, there were questions asked like, did Brad surprise you by stepping up and becoming that number one? And all of them said, no, we knew he could do it. Like, we knew he had it in him just because we had all seen him train and we knew the way that he worked. And so none of them seemed surprised that you're number one. So I think it's, a testament to your work ethic and to kind of the way that you prepare yourself, even when you're not getting regular minutes.
Well, how does that, so going from playing 9 games or whatever to playing almost every game, like how does that affect your, I mean, I assume that's like physically demanding in a way that it wouldn't have been before. Like, how does it affect your preparation during the season?
Yeah, it was different. For me, going the full season last year gave me a really good opportunity to work with our high performance staff and kind of figure out how to make sure my body is 100% ready every game. It wasn't something that I had to do in years past. I would be able to do a heavy lift the day before a game because I knew I wasn't playing. So I would be able to like do things like that and I wouldn't have to recover as much. So last year I spent a lot of time with our high performance staff and our athletic trainers, talking with Preston just about training routines and everything. And we got into a good groove, and I found some things last year that I wanted to tweak for this year just because of how I felt in some of the games going forward. But yeah, it was good. It was a good experience. It was a difficult experience. But this year should be a little bit easier having that full season under my belt.
And another difference that we had, you mentioned you got to stay here during the off season. I don't know if you were the only player that got to, but I imagine there's a lot more sense of cohesion, you know, in a group of guys that were here and you actually knew each other's names and probably, you know, you didn't have to get to know each other or figure out who was what. Like, you know, I think how does that sort of change your approach? Like that familiarity as a team, how do you feel like that's going to pay off for y'all this year?
It's already been fantastic. We had a lot of guys stick around Austin for a lot of preseason. We had some guys that would go home for Thanksgiving, come back, stay for a couple weeks, go home for Christmas, come back. Some guys just went home, but we had a decent amount of guys stick around Austin. We had our group chat going the entire off season. Nothing like getting pictures of the guys that were in South America, like on the beach, like hanging out, to the guys that went to the northeast section of the U.S. where it was snowing and cold. But no, the cohesion has been good. The camaraderie is definitely there. It's a lot easier going into a new season knowing 75% of the group. And the guys that have come in this year have been fantastic. They've acclimated extremely quickly, and they've brought a little bit of their own flavor, their own flair, and their own jokes to the locker room. So it's been good to integrate them, and the cohesion is continuing to build, but we're starting from a way higher spot than we did last year.
And Josh Wolf talked about not being able to do, like, COVID kind of preventing y'all from doing group outings, or like, I know that y'all are planning on going to Florida and maybe having that be something like that, but we've seen like photos and videos posted of like the little golf event that y'all did and things like that. It seems like it's already loosened up and y'all have gotten to do quite a bit more of that, but also starting, like, kind of building off of the cohesion that was built throughout the season last year. Yeah, luckily the protocols are a little bit looser. Luckily, we're in a state where we can do things outside a little bit easier to make everybody safer. Hopefully once the numbers go down again here in Austin, we'll be able to do a little bit more stuff. But
Yeah, I mean, the golf thing was fun. We were able to see who knew how to swing a golf club and who didn't. Uh, there were some friendly wagers in there. I think we're planning on doing some other team stuff. We've already had like a player only team dinner. We were able to go out to a restaurant, and be all together and kind of just hang out for a little bit. So it's been good. Still, COVID's still a thing, so we're trying to be as safe as possible. But we're definitely trying to do more than what we did last year.
Yeah, beyond players, I imagine this is a keeper thing and it's a you thing, but you also bonded really early and quickly with the fans. Early on with the supporter section, I guess not just supporter section, but like everybody in general. Can you talk a little bit more about your relationship with the fans, maybe here generally, but then here in Austin, kind of compared to where else you've been?
MLS is different. Like you see NBA, NHL, MLB, these sports are kind of like so they've been around so long and like there's so much money that the players aren't really accessible to the fans. I think MLS is very different. I think the players, the coaching staff, the fans are all kind of embedded as one, and it gives us a little bit more like face-to-face time. We're able to talk to them. We're able to kind of enjoy the game together. So I think everywhere I've been, it's been pretty easy to like talk to fans and get to know them, get to know the city that you're in. And here in Austin, we love this city. And I mean, the fans, the supporters, people in general have been great no matter what. Like they're always willing to put their hand up and be like, yeah, we'll help you out no matter what. And it's the same for the players. Like we want to give back and get results on the field as well.
Do you have any favorite moments, either like before, during, or maybe not during, before or after a game, like with the supporter section?
I think one of my favorite things is I have my little ritual that I do like right before kickoffs of each half. And like part of it is I like open my eyes and I look up and I just see this wall of fans. I think that's one of my favorite moments, especially on games that they have tifos. Like my walk to the goal when they have a tifo, it's just awesome to see because you see that entire section just going absolutely nuts and the game hasn't even started and you just feel the energy. It's amazing.
Yeah, Landon's got some insight into the next one, and he, I think he's under some ironclad NDA about it, but he thinks you'll be impressed.
It's very cool. That's all I'll say.
I've got a couple people that have dropped some hints that I'm going to like this one, and then they're like, oh, I can't tell you anything. Sorry. See you on February 26th. So.
It's very cool.
He's just gonna leave it at that. I haven't gone yet, so I don't have a perspective on it. So okay, one of the things that was on like probably Facebook and Reddit are not the greatest places for like interaction, but people were worried that you thought that you were being booed when the Stu chant came out last year. So like Stu chant, good or bad?
Fantastic, I love it.
Awesome. Like that was an easy one. And I'm gonna come up with another. This is kind of a dumb question, but it came up in the Twitter space today. The domain, good or bad?
The domain.
This is like the domain. Yeah, this is very controversial among longtime Austinites. Is it like people? There's all these pictures of people hanging out at the domain, and it's not really Austin. Now you're a South Austin guy, so you're gonna be like that too now, I think. But like, what's your take on the domain?
So we lived in the domain for the first 7 months. So we were right there. We loved it. We loved the accessibility of it all, but I can see how it's not very Austin-y. I mean, when you come south, it's very different. So I get it. I mean, but it's kind of cool having like different parts of the city have a different vibe. Like even when we were exploring and looking for a house, we were like, all right, where do we want to be? Because North Austin has the domain, it has the stadium, it has that. Downtown is downtown. Like the Hill Country, West Austin is its own little. East Austin's got its own idea. South Austin's got its own feel. So I kind of like that each spot has a different feel. And I mean, I think that's what makes everything so unique.
You seem like a South Austin guy to me, Brad.
Love that. That's the best compliment I could have gotten.
Going back to the Stu chant, I like one of my favorite interactions with that outside of an Austin FC game was when the U.S. national team came to town and played at Q2, and I think it was against Qatar, whoever that first game was against, but Matt Turner makes a save And like 3 rows up from me, I hear one guy go, Stu. And then like 15 people in the section all just died laughing. I was like, oh, that's amazing.
I was going to say, that's hilarious. I was actually at that game. I wish I would have heard that. That would have been fantastic. No,
it
that's
was so good.
That's amazing. I was going to say, they did it at the Nutcracker too. As I was
they did?
as I was being rolled on the stage, they were like, Stu. Some of the people backstage were like, why were they booing you? And I had to like tell them about it. I was like, oh, it's okay.
So yeah, they'll get it.
Some other like fun moments during the season. So against the Galaxy in September, Musajite was awarded man of the match and got to do the whole heartbeat thing with the supporter section on the drum. And as soon as it was over, you and Johan Romagna were the first ones to kind of like crash into him and like give him a big hug, and we're celebrating. And first, like my first thought was like, this is adorable. But then secondly, I was like, none of these guys speak the same language. Like, what are they saying to each other? So like in moments like that, what do you say to those guys? Like, how do you communicate with those guys?
No, so it's really funny. I mean, Musa and Johan are actually really close. And I know like French and Spanish are kind of close, so you can kind of get what you're saying across. I know Spanish, not very well, but I know enough Spanish to get by in the locker room and on the field. But no, those moments are, I mean, these guys have moved to a brand new country, are getting used to a new culture, and obviously they don't speak the same language as everybody else. I think for me, I just want to make them feel as comfortable as possible, and they have someone that's always going to be there for them no matter what. And I just wanted to, Musa was brand new to the league and got man of the match, so I wanted to celebrate with him. And with Romagna, these guys are so young in comparison to me. So I just want to make sure that they are comfortable within the squad and enjoy the moments and have a good celebration when they can.
Yeah, we had kind of seen that it looks like Johan and Musa were kind of getting close, and it reminds me of these videos that I saw many years ago that Manchester City put out of their players like building gingerbread houses or something. And Mario Balotelli and Carlos Tevez were next to each other, and they're just like, Tevez would speak Spanish and Balotelli would speak Italian. Yeah. And they're just like hanging out, talking to each other like that was normal. I was like, okay, this is hilarious, but it's awesome that it works somehow.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's one of those where all of us try and learn like certain things in different languages, and they're trying to learn English. So when you're speaking to some of these guys, you're like speaking in like broken Spanglish, and like you're just trying to get your point across. Sometimes it's like with a lot of hand motions or just like whatever, just trying to get your point across. But no, it's been good, and it's been fun to watch those guys grow.
So you mentioned like trying to make guys feel welcome. You seem to be really well respected and well liked among your teammates. Is there one, like who is the one teammate that you would say you're the closest with?
I don't know if there's one in particular, but I mean, especially this past offseason, me, Ring, Danny Hosen, and Julio all kind of stayed here for the majority of it. And like we were in the facility with each other throughout the entire off season as well. So we got pretty close, and we have some weekly games that we play against each other just for a little added competition. But those guys are probably the closer ones on the team.
So a similar but different question. If you were going to be on the TV show The Amazing Race, but instead of partnering with Ashley, your wife, you had to partner with one of your teammates, who would you choose and why?
No offense to Ashley, but I would definitely take Nick Lima on The Amazing Race. This man I feel like he's the Swiss Army knife of human beings. He knows everything. So
he was going to be my guess for the pick, because he seems to be like an outdoorsy guy. He's a really good athlete. Seems like a smart guy as well.
Yep. Like I said, he's got what you need for that type of competition. So
he's got it all. I love it. Hey, I wanted to ask about one other in-season event. Christian Espinosa. It's against San Jose.
Brad all just smiles before Jeremiah even says anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't figure I needed to give you like the date or the like. I had to go look it up. It's like, oh, 55 minutes in, and this happened, and this happened. I'm assuming that you have some memory of it, and you can fill us in on it. So, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean that was right after the penalty kick that Trophies took. I just remember diving to the left, ball went in the net. As I was on the ground, I kind of glance up back into the net, and I watch Espinoza and one other player, I think it was Trophies, kind of throw Julio into the net. And after that, I just kind of blacked out and saw red. I guess it was just one of those things where it was kind of stupid at the time because you run the risk of taking a red card. I did my best in that moment to make sure like I didn't hit his head or his face, neck. I didn't like swing my arms or anything, but it was more one of those situations where you don't get to come to our house and throw people into the net and think you're going to get away with it. So in that moment, I kind of took a stand and took a risk of just kind of letting them know that you can't really come here and do that without taking a little bit of heat. So thankfully, no red card, disciplinary committee, no red card. So got away with that one. I'll try not to do that ever again. So
they knew you were right, Brad.
Maybe. I mean, the double yellow, that's fine. The double yellow is fine. I'm okay with that. That's cool. But,
yeah, I mean, I feel like it was kind of a bond. I mean, it was kind of a tough time of the season, and it was like a moment where you guys were standing up for each other. So it kind of fit with, I think, everything that was going on.
yeah, I mean, there's certain moments in the season that happen that may not be the smartest of plays that kind of galvanize the group. Looking back on it, it didn't happen that game because we ended up giving up another goal and losing that result. But I think just when people look at things and think that we have each other's back no matter what, and we're willing to cross a line for your teammate, that goes a long way. And hopefully we don't have to do that as much this year, but in a first year club, like sometimes it needs to be done.
Well, we know you're super community minded, and so is your wife. We've mentioned that. So you guys have another laundry project event, but it's really like 4 laundry project events, I think, if I understand it correctly. So fill us in on the dates on that and kind of when, or the date on that, and I guess how people can help out.
Yeah, so we are doing our next laundry project day on March 27th. We are hosting 4 different locations all at the same time. We'll be continuing with the one location that we started with the very first one, and then we're going to be adding 3 more locations at the same time. I think the one location will be like front office staff, Fair Day leaders, or ATX Foundation, and some academy kids. 2 of the locations are going to be all fans. They've really stepped up and said, yeah, we want to do this. So they're going to run 2 of the locations. And then we actually have another group of laundry project people that are going to run the 4th. Right now, I'm pretty sure there's a drop-off location at Hot Squad for March 12th. I think it's a watch party of the Portland game. I think.
Yeah, you're doing good. I think I'm writing an email about this like in the next week or so.
Okay,
so it's definitely on March 12th. I don't remember which game it is.
I think it's might be the Portland game. I think it's the Portland game. But it's the watch party. We're trying to solidify a couple other dates, but I think we're also going to do like a 3-hour event at Hot Squad on March 26th. It'll be in the afternoon. It'll lead up to the Mexican friendly that we'll be hosting at Q2, but that one will be more like a donation drop-off, hang out, drink beer, learn about the laundry project, tailgate for the game, do whatever. So that'll be another date, and then the project will be on the 27th.
Excellent. Well, we'll be sure to put a link in the show notes where listeners can find all that information and take part or help out if they're able to. Yeah, Brad Stuver, thanks so much for joining, man. This has been great.
Yeah, thanks again.
Austin is lucky to have you, and I hope you know that. I think you do, but we very much appreciate you being here and all that you do for the community and for the fan base.
Well, we love it here, and we're very appreciative of everyone and everything here in the city. So thank you guys.
I ain't got no time to let you pass. I only got one life.
like to thank Brad Stuver one more time for taking some time to come chat with us. It's always a pleasure to hear from him. He's a lovely human, isn't he?
He absolutely is. Just everything about him is so positive and so nice, and it's good to make the time for us. And you had a good chat with him off mic about South Austin. That he's a South Austin guy. Gave some advice, but he's just like, he and his wife Ashley are both incredible parts of the community, and we're lucky to have him.
All right. We would like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tell a friend about the show. It helps us a lot. If you want to continue the conversation, check us out on Twitter. I'm at LViajero87. Jeremiah is at JBentley_ATX. And then we're on Twitter and Instagram at Moon Tower Soccer. We'd like to also encourage you to visit the Striker Texas website. Jeremiah, what can folks look out for this week?
I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but Chris Bills had a really good interview with Johan Valencia that I would encourage everybody to check out and learn a little bit more about his background and how he sees himself fitting in Austin.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks so much for listening. This is the last non-real game week, right? So we'll be back in 1 week with a little match preview and a new episode of Moon Tower Soccer. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Muchas gracias. Bye bye.